You go down and then you go up to make it better, make it better. Down on the ground, it's just one way up. Make it better, make it better. If you stand by me, I will stand by you. To make it better, make it better.
Hello, I'm Assemblymember Rebecca Seawright, Chair of the Aging Committee in the New York State Assembly, and I want to welcome all of you today to Manhattan Neighborhood Network Rise Up with Rebecca. Today, we have a very special organization, LiveOn New York, and you may have seen recently my op-ed in Empire Report, A Heavy Toll, Elder Fraud, and the Ways that we can better protect older New Yorkers. And my public awareness legislation would spread the word about elder financial exploitation to older New Yorkers where they live. Recently, we had a constituent contact our district office. Her life savings had been wiped out, and she was a victim of fraud. So we are pushing this legislation this session and hoping to be successful with it. In New York State, we have a financial security crisis engulfing our communities, particularly among the aging New Yorkers. Reports by AARP and the Center for an Urban Future revealed that more than 250,000 older adults in New York City are living in poverty, a 40% surge in the last decade, and that 60% are people over age 70 do not have a stable source of income. So here in Albany, we fought for a state budget that asserts our foundational values of compassion and fair play by expanding health services, reducing disparities, and protecting our most vulnerable neighbors. Entitlement programs are now more important than ever. LiveOn New York, our organization today, represents more than 100 nonprofits, from small single-site centers to large multi-service organizations serving the older adult population in New York State. Through its work and membership, they represent 3.2 million older New Yorkers and caregivers. Our guest today is Allison Nickerson. She is the Executive Director of LiveOn New York and a voice for older New Yorkers by changing the conversation, flipping the script around aging services and aging issues. And we're so thrilled to have her join the program today. And I would like to ask her to say some opening introductory remarks, and then we'll get to some questions.
Sure. Thank you so much, Assemblymember. I'm so thankful for your leadership in standing up for not only the older people in your constituency, and actually all people, all of your constituents who all wake up one day older, but for all older New Yorkers. It is so appreciated, and we look forward to partnering so that all New Yorkers have what they need to afford to stay in the state, and that caregivers also can have peace of mind so that they can go to work, continue to be a family member for their loved ones, and so that we can all age with confidence and thrive in later life.
Great. And can you tell us a little bit about LiveOn New York's history? When was it founded? How did it evolve? And you represent, I think, over 3 million in New York State. So you're making an impact. But how did this all get started initially for your organization?
Sure, thank you. So LiveOn was founded as Council of Senior Centers in 1979 by a philanthropist named Ellie Guggenheimer, who also formed the Daycare Council and a few other organizations. And it was formed to be a coalition. When funding started coming down from the federal level for what is called the Older Americans Act, which was founded at the same time as Medicare and Medicaid to be a community pillar so that we don't just spend healthcare dollars. When those dollars started flowing down to the state levels and then the local municipalities, our founder decided we really need to work in coalition together. We need to advocate together. We need to be the voice of what older people are looking for. Everybody wants to age in their own home, myself included. That's what I want for myself, my children, my parents. And so today we continue that tradition. And our goal is, we have two main goals. The first is to make sure that government is responsive to what people need. Basic needs, including food, housing, community support, workforce support. And the second is to make sure that the community-based service system has the tools that it needs so that it can be responsive to older adults in their community. And so, you said I'm sorry, were you gonna say something? Oh, we've evolved in the time that I have been at LiveOn, because 15, 20 years ago, everyone kept saying, when the baby boomers turn 60, or when the baby boomers start turning 65, and that time has come and gone. And so we really find ourselves, we are in an aging nation and actually in an aging globe. And so we need to decide, do we make the most of people's humanity and make sure that people can thrive as they age and can realize the momentum they have? Or are we going to look the other way and pretend it's not a problem and really cause very serious hardship for people all over the state and all over the country, really, and their caregivers? And so our work continues as it always has, but certainly the tenor and the urgency has changed.
So we know there's a caregiving services crisis in New York State. How do you think that's affecting our older adults and the family members and the workforce that supports them? And what can we be doing to solve this crisis of caregivers? People can age in place with dignity and stay in their homes, but many times the issue for them becomes caregivers. So what can we do about this caregiving crisis?
It's a really great question, and one that is on the minds of so many families. I often talk to people who say they just don't understand how hundreds of thousands of people can go through a caregiving crisis, and both be from family caregivers and paid caregivers, not have a structure that's set up for them. When people sit around a kitchen table with their head in their hands, they're usually dealing with childcare, elder care, finances. I mean, this is one of the core things that are really most important, especially for women. And fundamentally, it is an affordability issue. There are over 4 million family caregivers in New York, and each of them struggle in different ways to care for their loved ones and have their own quality of life. And then when we talk about the paid caregiving workforce, we need a system that adequately pays for the work that's being done. We've been part of a campaign for many years, Fair Pay for Home Care. Home care workers are the backbone of home care in the state of New York and across the country. And we have to make sure that that work gets paid and is valued. I think there are 3 core things we need to do. One, we need to acknowledge that there is a major crisis, both for family caregivers and for paid caregivers. We want to hear the governor talk about this in her State of the State. We want to hear this normalized because caregivers are waiting to hear and looking for direction and to acknowledge that it is a major affordability problem for them. The second is we need more community-based and housing-based support for people as they age. There are ways that we can provide home care and care in a group setting, right? That is a little bit different, and there are pilots and things that have happened all over the state. We need to invest in. We do not have enough people to provide one-to-one care to older New Yorkers. It just doesn't, like, the math doesn't add up. So we need to think about what other community-based care can be wrapped around each person: Meals on Wheels, congregate senior center meals, other things that we can do to keep people at home. And the third is we have to pass vital caregiving bills. AARP has had legislation for many, many years. And so prioritizing that, and again, I'm so thankful to your leadership and standing up for older people. And that is one way that we can prioritize caregiving in the state.
What type of investment would be meaningful in New York State to really, really hone down and address the aging services infrastructure? What do you think that would look like? And what is the risk if we continue to underfund this critical network at the state level?
So I think the goal that we should all have is to make sure that all of us have adequate resources and community supports so that we're not pulling the rug under from under people, right? We want to make sure that if you paid into a system, if you played by the rules, if you have all the things that you were supposed to do, you worked hard, that you have adequate community support. And so that looks like making sure that we have community care options, that people, if they just need a little bit of help, can get that affordable little bit of help if they need it. So again, a Meals on Wheels program, some caregiving support, support for respite for family caregivers, case management, helping people walk through what they might qualify for, how to remain at home. And that happens from two types of investments. One is political will, really making sure that it is on the priority list, again, of the governor ultimately. There's only so much that the Senate and Assembly can do, right? We need the governor to acknowledge and talk about this issue and make really long-term investment. We're so thrilled with the money that was passed in the last budget. We probably need 10 times that amount of money to make sure that all people have access to care throughout the state. The second type of investment is funding. We need a funding formula that ensures that all New Yorkers can access community services and not just respond to waiting lists. It's super important that we get people off of waiting lists for programs like Meals on Wheels, but that shouldn't even happen in the first place. You know, we have funding formulas for how we fund school and aftercare and all sorts of things. We need to decide, what is the state willing to invest to offset its Medicaid costs and to make sure people can age in place. And so that, I think, an infrastructure needs to be reimagined. We say all the time, like, we've had a longevity boom, right? We are aging differently than we were 30 years ago. Like, fundamentally, people are living longer, and that is such good news. But our systems and policies have not kept up. Like, we are back 30, 40, 50 years ago, and that's not how people live. So we need to figure out what an updated system would look like.
Right, absolutely. Are there other states in the United States that New York should be looking to as a model or following their example of what's been successful in terms of investment in other state budgets? You think of New York and the size of New York State, and often the state of Texas, which is huge. There's a lot of synergy between the two states because of their size. But are there states around the country? I recently, passed the Equal Rights Amendment, which was on the ballot last November, passed and approved, and it includes a category against discrimination against the elderly, aging discrimination, which we were pleased to make it an expanded Equal Rights Amendment bill. But we looked at other states like Nevada and what they did in order to update their state constitution and pass the Equal Rights Amendment. What other states would you suggest New York look to follow what they're doing that is successful in terms of a meaningful investment and grants to community-based organizations?
There are lots of things. I always think I think in New York, everyone thinks we do everything the best, but there's so many places, and I'm so
that
happy
New
that
York attitude, that's great.
But there are lots of places that serve as examples. Illinois' budget for aging is $1.4 billion. That eclipses ours like massively. Pennsylvania uses some of its lottery funding to make sure that it funds aging services. We have, all sorts of new betting that goes on in the state, like that maybe is it was way to look at that. New Jersey has open data sourcing, and so they have ways that they can look at different types of data. Minnesota also has trackers and data where you can see where money is being spent and how it's most impactful. But I think I was part of the state's Master Plan on Aging Stakeholder Advisory Committee, and the MPA process did a lot of this research and put in a lot of recommendations that are currently sitting with the governor. So I would say that process has started, and I would encourage the second floor to release the MPA because I think there's a lot in there, and it was about a 2.5-year process. that might be a really good plan and low-hanging fruit items, right, that the state can pass to make people's lives fundamentally
Right, and I
easier.
hope the master plan that you're referring to includes a section on home sharing and respite care, because I think that's very important. We have a
Yes.
very successful model of that with the Foundation for Senior
Mhm.
Citizens here in New York City, and it would be great. I've had other assembly members come up to me and want to replicate what we're
Mhm.
doing in my district in Manhattan, in their districts on Long Island and upstate. So I think it's important that that be included.
Mm.
Hopefully, we'll see that master plan soon. Um, so, what do you think about the federal government's proposal to dissolve the Administration for Community Living, ACL? It's caused concern among many, many advocates and many of my constituents. What do you see as the implications of this change for older adults in New York and really beyond?
I think the overarching implication is that the only administration that was focused on older people is being disbanded. And so the implication is that they don't matter, right? I mean, I think it's um, that is what I have heard from many older people. Like, how can this happen? This is the only thing that, you know. I do think that we're kind of waiting to see what will happen with the funding levels. It is crucial that the funding remain intact. We want the funding to remain whole, not just be split apart. But I think more than just ACL, there are major concerns about the other core programs that support people's ability to remain in our homes. So also with the skinny budget release or the president's kind of preview of what he would like to see in the next federal budget, it includes the dismantling of things like the social service block grant that funds all APS in the state of New York, Alzheimer's research, older adult workforce, um, senior employment issues, LIHEAP, which helps people afford air conditioning, electric, heat, which is even more important for older people in the face of climate change. The entire staff has been fired from that federal agency. Social Security, we hear of people across New York State who wait on the phone for 6 hours to be hung up on, who show up for appointments just to be told to leave. Um, all of this together is causing real fear and real anxiety for people, for everyday people who, again, expect we're Americans. We like lines, we like block parties, we expect things to work, and the opposite is happening. The chaos is causing real concern for real people. So it is ACL. We're very concerned about ACL, but even more than that, it's the whole package when you look at it.
And what are some of the concerns between downstate and upstate that you're seeing as an organization among your groups that you advocate for?
So I would say the issues are the same. The way they show up are very different. So across the state, affordability, food, transportation, housing, job support, those are all like the core healthcare, access to healthcare are all critically important. They look very different if you compare Binghamton to the Bronx. If you look at Manhattan versus, Massapequa, like things look, transportation, you can't even like I thought I knew about transportation challenges and then I go to a rural area and I'm like, these are fundamentally different challenges. And so we need to understand, and not just rural and urban, but also suburban, because suburban is like also has a host of challenges, and also with the workforce. Upstate people there are not the types of workforce that we have in New York City, and so certain jobs are very hard to fill. But again, it's similar issues; they show up very differently.
Mhm. And is there someone in your life that inspired you to become an advocate for older New Yorkers, or um, how did you get involved in this line of work?
I grew up in a liberal Protestant household, and I have a very deep belief in loving and supporting my neighbor. So I went into social work because of that. And I went into the aging field because of my relationship with my grandmothers, who had very different experiences, but both became very invisible in old age because of isolation. So that's kind of why I went into the field. But I would say I have been so lucky to not only meet professional colleagues who've really shaped my ability to love and nurture this field, but also every time I'm out in one of our member agencies, the people running the programs and the people participating in the programs remind me why supporting people as they age is so fundamental to our humanity. And so I'm most grateful to the people who pull me aside when I'm visiting an older adult center or delivering Meals on Wheels and they work in the kitchen and remind me why they work, because that's really inspirational.
So in our district office, we have several volunteers that are over the age of 90. And I know one of the top issues that I'm constantly hearing is loneliness and how to combat loneliness among our senior citizens. And so we have a program where we encourage people of all ages to volunteer in our district office. It's not just answering phones and opening letters, but doing research and advising us on issues and the staff. We have a free pro bono housing clinic twice a month, but I know some seniors want to be employed. They want to work. So we've featured in our newsletter places of employment that focus on hiring the elderly. What do you see as a successful way to combat loneliness among our elderly population?
It is one of, I feel this so deeply, and I feel like it's one of the most important issues for our time. Not only because loneliness is very real, but the digital divide and the kind of breakdown in what was a norm that people kind of participated in are not the same as they were even 10 years ago. So, I think community programs are a really good option for a lot of people, usually through volunteering. I went many years ago to a program in your district, actually, and I met a woman who was telling me that she needed a knee replacement, thought she had dementia, was completely depressed, and her neighbor convinced her to start going to a center. And she didn't want to have anything to do with the senior center, but she said, okay, I'll show up. She needed hearing aids. She didn't have dementia. She just needed some hearing aids. She did need a knee replacement, but was able to get one through the connections with the center. She teaches Zumba. She switched into teaching Zumba, and they found out that a bunch of elementary school students in the NYCHA or in the neighboring area needed tutoring. So she started a tutoring program with a bunch of older women, and that changed the course of her older age. And so I think of someone like that who is not, didn't really want to maybe get involved with a community center, but really found a place. And so I think that's often the entree into people to volunteer, but it is a fundamental concern with how we handle social isolation.
That's wonderful, wonderful, and a great success story. A lot of our public school students in high school need community service hours. And so we've tried to pair up some of our young people in terms of the digital divide with our seniors who are having trouble with their cell phones, or their email or their computer won't turn on, or they'd like to learn Facebook or Instagram to see photos of their grandchildren and their family and their friends, and reconnect with someone from the 1950s that they went to school with. So that is a successful program. It gives the young person community service hours that are required from their public school, and it helps the senior to combat loneliness and also learn these digital skills. So
great.
How can someone reach your organization and reach you? What is your website, your email? What's the best way for people to contact LiveOn New York?
Sure. So you can certainly reach out to our website, which is liveon-ny.org, or you can email me directly. My email is Nickerson, so ANICKERSON at LiveOn, so that's LiveOn-ny.org. And we're always interested to hear what people are thinking or needing or different things for sure. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Allison Nickerson, Executive Director of LiveOn New York, for joining us today and for all your outstanding advocacy on behalf of older New Yorkers. And thank you to our viewers for watching Rise Up with Rebecca Seawright on the Manhattan Neighborhood Network. We look forward to seeing you soon.